great to be back with Alta Forma for this new release trajectory. It was a joy to be back with two of my favorite musicians, JK and Antoine, and don't mind if I say it, it's another banger.
Alta Forma is back, and it was a real pleasure to work on a new album with Todd and JK.
Alta Forma, the follow-up, more fun and laughs. It was a great opportunity to get back with Antoine and Todd, and I think we had some unfinished business from that first record.
Alta Forma is really unique for me because it's the only project where I write the music in collaboration. Most of the music that I release, first of all, is instrumental, and also I take care of the melodic, harmonic aspects, and of course I work with a lot of collaborators, but I'm really kind of in charge of the whole vision of the music. Alta Forma is different. First of all, I work with a singer, so it has lyrics. JK is a brilliant singer, and not only that, a great musician overall and a composer in his own right. Successful collaboration means that you need to have the right mindset when you approach a project. So you cannot be attached to your ideas too much, because a collaboration to work, you need to let the other person play with your ideas, which can be difficult in the beginning if you've never done that. But to be successful, really, you need to accept the fact that if you send a chord progression, for instance, the other person might decide to change a chord, remove a chord, work with the structure. And so your ideas will be tampered with, and that's okay, because you also probably do the same with the ideas that the other person sent you. So you need to find a nice balance and agreement between the people you work with. The great thing about this project is that the collaboration works really well. I mean, it's sometimes difficult to say, oh, you were maybe attached to one idea and it's got transformed. But the more you work on this morphed, transformed idea, and then you realize you accept it, it's a new entity, and you just move on. Working with JK is always fascinating, because I'm never 100% sure what will come back, but one thing for sure, it will come back great. So JK has a wonderful voice, and it's always great when I send my demos with my own voice coming back with a much higher standard, to say the least. So I know that my initial ideas were okay, but it comes back as real music.
Really pleased with how the second record's come out. I think we might have even topped the first one. Some surprises on this record. Antoine he was talking about the power trio format, and he mentioned Van Halen, and he was saying he didn't want to layer up tons of guitars and stuff, and he wanted to keep it cleaner in that way. But as a power trio, I think it leans a bit more towards the Police this time, which is I don't have a problem with at all. Todd's really great at that sort of worldy drumming. The new record, there's just so many great songs on it, and Antoine's playing great, and it's always such a pleasure. Antoine does these very complicated drum program, to give Todd the concepts that he's hearing in his head. But what's amazing about Todd is, and I've seen this, I've known him a long time. I remember he got a gig doing like samba music, and it was two sides of a 90-minute cassette of material that he had to learn without a rehearsal, and it was all that like and he just listened in the car for like a day and went and did the gig. So it's always amazing to me, because Todd does these, he records them as performances, and it's quite impressive. I think the challenge for me as a singer and as a co-writer, Antoine hears very kind of more complicated music than the average person can handle. So I think much in the way that Adrian Belew brought a bit of Beatles to King Crimson, I feel like that's my role in Alta Forma, is to kind of make things a bit more singable and memorable in that way. And I feel we succeeded on this record for sure. We'll lose a few people, but I think fans of progressive music and artful music will really enjoy this record.
I really started to work on this music probably prior the previous album, so I had some ideas left on standby, and I never really stopped working with music with lyrics, so it's something that I keep working on in parallel to all my other projects. So of course Alta Forma wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for Todd. When I approached him many years ago about the idea of working on an album with vocals, Todd then introduced me to JK, and without this introduction, I don't think the project would have happened at all. It's very difficult to find musicians that are on the same wavelength, and I think with this project, we definitely are. I'm very pleased that we finalized a second album.
I do write things on the piano that I think to myself, well, what can I do with this? This is a bit too complicated to be a pop song. And I'm like, we'll give it to Antoine. He'll know what to do with it. So that's a joy for me to have an outlet for the more complicated things that I sometimes hear in my head. And Antoine and Todd and I are like-minded in that we enjoy, music that has multiple levels of understanding for, somebody that does understand music. And hopefully the goal is to not intimidate people that don't understand, complicated music. It should be an inviting listen for anybody. And I think we've achieved that.
Todd gets involved in the project really when the songs are fully written. When I send him a piece, usually it's pretty much 99% in place. At the later stage, we might add extra embellishments. Maybe JK might add some backing vocals, redo a few lines. I might do the same. But really the structure of the music is in place. And for him, he can ingest this music, absorb it, and really think about its parts.
There was also a logistical challenge to making this record because I had wanted to record this in September of 24, and I was going through a massive change where I was going back to Sonar Drums, which is the company, the brand of drums I played from the time I was about 10 or 11 to about 1999, until I was 30, really. And I was with Pearl for 25 years, so it was sort of a massive thing to do the changeover. Anyway, the drums took a little longer to get here. They arrived here in this room on November 22nd, and on November 24th and 25th, I recorded the whole record in 2 days, along with 2 days after that, a record for an artist in Germany called Finally George. So I did these 2 records in 4 days after just receiving these drums, so it was a pretty manic beehive of activity here.
As Todd mentioned, everything is recorded in a couple of days, which is amazing. He's had time to simulate all that music and just knows exactly what's coming up. So I like to say he knows my music better than I do. When I send the music to Todd, unlike the other projects, I don't give any written charts or anything other than the demos with my programmed drums. And these are, of course, suggestions. Then he can take it on and keep what he thinks is a good fit for the song, but then he can add his own approach to it. That includes additional percussion, and in the case of the piece Conspirations, he's added his concert drums to the arrangement, which is really an interesting sound in itself.
This record was very challenging rhythmically. A song like Trajectory, where the chorus has that E and a 4, E and a 4. The way Antoine wrote that and kind of orchestrated it between the bass drum and the snare drum, I'd never heard anything like that before. There was nothing I could go, oh, that reminds me of, or oh, that's kind of like. So I had to internalize that rhythm to make it feel natural and flow well, because I first thought it was in a different time signature, but it's in 4/4, which is really kind of staggering to me.
The target can change. Realize and then rearrange. Redirection.
There's one concept I like to include in my music is something I call hidden complexity. So, of course, the concept of complexity is not the same for everyone. So an experienced musician might find certain things elementary, and maybe a beginning musician might find certain things complex. So complexity is relative. But what I mean by that is I like to have music that doesn't sound complex for the sake of it. So I think high level of complexity, harmonic, rhythmical complexity can be achieved, and if it doesn't serve the music, I think it's a little bit of a miss. I don't think music should be complex just for the sake of it. The complexity, if there is any, for at any level, should always serve the music. So what I mean by hidden complexity is usually playing with rhythm, where the rhythm is more complex than it sounds. So what I mean by that is you hear that sometimes in popular music, and the Police is a perfect example. As a band, everybody knows their music. If you take a song like Roxanne, for instance, everybody knows that song. But if you ask 3 musicians to go into a room and play Roxanne, I think they would realize, oh, this song is actually more complex than it sounds, because each musician has to play their parts really precisely, rhythmically, and otherwise the whole thing can completely collapse. And the Police as a band has many songs where actually, if you analyze the music, you realize this is not simple. And I love to attempt that into my own music. I'm not sure if I've achieved it, but for example, the song Trajectory, the first song on the album, has this groove where it starts on the second 60 note of the bar. And that in itself is unusual. And in fact, when I listened back to the whole project, I did that on another song called Can't Escape. And harmonically, I don't think the song is that complex, although there's modulation. But I think it flows really well, and I think that groove brings something quite unusual. And what I like about it is that it flows. So I don't think the complexity, if there is any, is not really in your face. It's more subtle. Now, at the end of the 3-chord sequence, in the very beginning of the song, Todd plays this fill, which ends with a gong drum. And then it starts again in the next section, like I said, on the second 16 of the bar. And I think when you listen to something like that at first, there's nothing complex about it. But I'd like to play that section that I'm talking about here. I'd like to play it now with the click track. So if you listen to the song the first time, you might realize something is going on here. But when you analyze it, oh yeah, the gong drum ends on the up of the 4th beat, and then the groove starts in the second 16 of the following bar. So that in itself, I think, it's pretty unusual, and that's what I mean about hidden complexity.
When you have like a little germ of an idea, and then Antoine will, take my certain chord progression and be like, well, what if we go minor there? Or, if I add this 5th chord to what you've got, and then, and then we'll play around with the melody ideas and stuff.
The track Loop of Insanity was just that. It was insane for me because Antoine, where he was feeling the one, was different than where I was. And I had already internalized it a certain way. And I FaceTimed with Antoine one day. I said, I'm not sure I can play this piece of music. It whips around and it surprises me and scares me a little bit. And he laughed at me. And he said it'd be no problem. So I just had to internalize the one where I felt it, regardless to where anyone else might field a one on that, but that was a challenge.
Of course, that never happened, never left in Todd's face. So, a couple of things. This song is a little bit of my personal tribute to Van Halen. Van Halen, the band, Eddie Van Halen, the musician. I think it's a tribute in a couple of points. First of all, the guitar sound that I use there has this mixture of overdrive with clean, and it's something that Eddie did on an album like Balance, for instance. I think it has put a bit of that in it, and I really like that sound where there's no multi-track. It's really one guitar that sounds very large, and that was my attempt to do that. The other element I like about Van Halen that I attempted it on that song is the fact that you don't always know exactly where the one is, or you try to play with the rhythm in an interesting way. And I think Van Halen had a lot of songs where you don't exactly know where you are rhythmically. Everything flows and everybody knows those songs, but again, when you start analyzing those pieces and you attempt to play them, you realize, wow, this is more complex than I thought. The problem with Loop Insanity is I had the song, which is pretty much in 4/4 in a chorus section. For no very good reason, I decided to put a 7/8, and then the next bar started on the up of the first beat. And when I gave all that to Todd, I didn't give any really information. Like I said, I didn't write any parts down or anything like that. And I think he really wondered what the heck is going on here. And when I listened back to the piece, I said, why did I put a 7/8? There was no musical purpose to do that. It's already complex as it is. So I changed it back to a 4/4. I think the groove is still interesting. In the chorus, things are happening on the, really playing on the upbeat. It's my tribute to Van Halen in this approach of surprising the audience.
And the drums I used on the session and that will live here in perpetuity are the Sonar SQ2, Heavy Beach and African Marble veneer inside and out, gold hardware on the Pearl Icon rack, used various Sonar snare drums, and used various prototypes that became the finals for my signature Sabian HHX red light crashes. It's also fun to break out the new concert tom kit on the last song, Conspirations. I thought there was a good use for some mechanical sounds and that really sort of dry, barky, Phil Collins-ish, for lack of better description, sounds to double the concert toms on top of the regular drums. For that one, I think the results came out really nice.
As I do with most of the new music that I work on, I always try to bring something new, as in not repeat the same chords, the same structure, or the same ideas I've used in the past. Sometimes I will reuse an old idea and rearrange it. And I think there's something to be said about rearranging music. I think the real key in music to me is hidden in the chord sequences, the nature of the chords and how the chords are linked to each other. And I think music can be rearranged in almost unlimited ways. And this is something I like to do a lot as well. So I take maybe old progressions and put them in a completely different setup. Now, when I work on brand new music, I do try to come up with something I haven't done before. And there's a conscious effort in doing that. And that applied as well to the lyrics. Now, the lyrics is not something that I've done a lot in my early days as a musician, but it's something that I enjoy doing. 10 of the 11 songs were done really in collaboration, probably even more than in the first album. I tried to dive into subjects that I hadn't tackled on the first album. Sometimes the theme of the piece might be a little bit more esoteric and more abstract, but some others are pretty much, I think, more straightforward. And I like to tackle universal themes and things that I observe, suggest ideas, and something that hopefully people will find engaging. And hopefully the themes that are explored in the lyrics are well in tune with the actual music.
Another thing that's a bit of a challenge with Antoine is he's French Canadian, and English, I think it's his second language. So the concepts are always really interesting, but sometimes I need to help kind of smooth them out in terms of singability and understandability.
When Antoine approached me with this project, I asked him to avoid sending me any demos or rough mixes. For this project, I wanted to have a fresh perspective. I think it really worked because I believe I was able to improve on the previous album's sound on every aspect of it. This is the first album with Todd's new sonor kit, and you can clearly hear that it's Todd, but I think somehow it's a little bit better than the previous one, at least for me. Todd recorded with his usual microphones, which are mostly Audix. Even if they are microphones for live performances, you can clearly tell that because they are rugged and dynamic. I think the quality is really good, especially when you're recording in a small room with loud drums, which is the case for Todd's studio. Even if the room is dampened, still from a condenser microphone you would get a lot of sound of the rest of the kit, but with the dynamic microphone I think it's just better for the separation of every closed microphone. Surely the sound of the large diaphragm microphone like a condenser would be more natural from the start, but I believe that the most important part, at least for me, for the way I mix, the most important part is the separation of each microphone. So I think working with a dynamic microphone like those Audix microphones is the best option for me, because I can really dig in and do whatever I need to do on each single channel. I don't need for the drums to be real, I just make them sound real. So the capture can be whatever it is that works best for mixing, but at the end of the day, the important thing for me is to be able to do what I need to do rather than having to fight off every bleeds that comes in on every channel. For Antoine's bass and guitars, we used the same virtual amps that we used on the previous album, so it's guitar rig and amplitude. Working with virtual rigs, I think it's the best option for the way Antoine works, because Antoine records stuff while composing. So different pieces could be recorded in even 1 or 2 years gap. Obviously, having the same exact setup for a real amplifier would be impossible from each take. Instead, working with virtual amps, we are able to just change it on the go. Actually, I dig in while I'm mixing to improve the sound for each song or even each little part of the song. Maybe I need a specific different tone for a section, and with a virtual amp I can easily just do that even at the end of the mixing. The biggest issues that I have when I have to work with vocals is that they are often too compressed and saturated, and that really makes it harder for me to get the best sound out of them. What usually happens is that when you have saturation on the preamp side of the channel, you are saturating everything that is coming in. So for example, if I have like a sibilance or something that I really want to get rid of, it's going to be very difficult to do that afterwards, because with saturation and the overdrive, there are going to be a lot of extra harmonics on it. So when you take that out, you are still able to hear it, or you're even making like a hole because the vocals were already compressed and you didn't really want that. You just wanted to get rid of a frequency that didn't work. Instead, you're probably forced to get rid of the old thing. I think I managed to do a pretty good job with them in this album. There surely are places where I had to dig in, but usually when I do that, I always fill whatever hole I make with effects or something else. I just clean up the vocals first, and then I add effects to give them depth and also the proper feeling for the specific section of the song. And after that, I just work my way with effects, throws, long verbs, delays, whatever is needed in specific places. And I just do that at the very end of the mixing. Actually, I prefer to have a solid song that works 99% of the time, and just spend a lot of time to get that extra 1% at the end of the mixing part. I'm very proud of how this album sounds, and I hope you enjoy it.
Overall, I'm very proud of what we've achieved here, and I hope that you will look into that music, enjoy it too.
It's my hope that people check out this music. It's delicate, it's complicated, it's deep, thought-provoking lyrics, thought-provoking lines, and you got one of the best voices delivering it to you on planet Earth, in my opinion. So we hope that you check out the record and that it becomes part of your life.
So I think we've achieved great results sonically with this project. I think all the instruments sound great, really well mixed together, thanks to Davide Squaldini, who's mixing all my music. I think Todd's playing is spectacular, Jakey's voice is amazing. I really enjoy playing all the guitar and bass parts on this project. I think it holds up well together, and really proud of it.
I'm looking forward to making more music with JK and Antoine and fulfilling the trilogy of what's to come here in the future. So stand by.
Please to enjoy Alta Forma Trajectory.